Hello and welcome to episode number 5 of the Flatwater Podcast. I am one of your hosts, Greg, with my much esteemed co-host, Josh.
Hey, everybody.
We've got a great episode for you here today. We have an incredible interviewee coming up with us a little later on in the episode. We're talking with Patrick Rea. But before then, we wanted to give you some updates on what's going on with the Flatwater Film Festival. We don't have a lot of updates, which is not uncommon. It happens. But want to just kind of keep you posted on what's going on here. So end of April, beginning of May, we successfully ran through a fundraising campaign through the Seward County Gives program. Basically what they do is they pick out nonprofit organizations and people go in and they will donate that based on being in the Seward County area. And since the Flatwater Film Festival is based at the Rivoli Theater, which is in Seward, Nebraska, we get to participate in that. And we had a really good fundraising campaign for that. So lots of good things happening on that end. Excuse me. Coming up here in the next couple of months, hard to believe, we are coming up on the 4th of July.
Yeah, it's crazy.
It's going by fast. And usually when 4th of July hits for us, it's do or die time. It's get our poop in a group and get ready to roll, for the festival is not far behind it. So Seward has an incredible event down there for the 4th of July. They call themselves the 4th of July City. And we have a booth down there that we take part of in every year. Essentially, we go down there and we are telling people about who we are, what we do.
It's a really cool event. Just like beyond. No,
thank you for saving me.
No, it's all good. Just beyond Flatwater. There's a lot of really cool vendors down there. A lot of the theater shows. They screen a film. Usually every year, tons of people. It is a crowded place on the 4th of July, but it's a really good just vibe down there. I said Flatwater's got a booth. We've been in the same place for the last few years. If you've never been to the Flatwater Film Festival, come swing by our booth out in Seward, learn a little bit, come chat with us. Yeah. And it's just a really cool event.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. And it's a great exposure for us too, which is why we go down there. There's thousands upon thousands of people. I think Josh said that, but you can't really pay for that kind of exposure outside of something like that. So we're down there. We're offering popcorn. I think we're going to do water again this year because it is hot as heck.
Yep,
hot as heck on that day. So doing that, and it's a fun time, really fun day to get us all together and kind of kickstart the festival really for us.
Right. Yeah.
Excuse me.
And like Greg said, it definitely is a kickstart. Come 4th of July, we are full steam ahead once that date hits. So
indeed,
you might have a lack of updates right now. You'll get a ton of updates come the 4th of July.
the floodgates are about to open.
Yeah.
And actually, I thought of another one. Keep your eyes peeled because very soon we will be talking about our next installment of our 48-hour film challenge that is coming up.
Yes.
So we can't forget to talk about that. Yes. Yeah. we have all of our stuff is ready to talk about. We just have a date that we want to stick to, and just keep your eyes peeled. We will let you know when that happens. So
yes.
As far as anything else goes, our submissions are still open. We are still taking movies. Love to see what you've got for us. We take any films that have not been previously screened at the Flatwater Film Festival. So
yes,
anything from whenever you started making movies up until now, we want to see it. So go ahead and jump on over there to Film Freeway and submit that film. We also have hotel blocks open. Jump over to our website at flatwaterfilmfestival.com to get all that information.
If you're planning on coming out to Flatwater at all, and just spend the weekend out there. So the hotel has a discounted room block, so you save some money, and just hang out for the whole weekend and come see a lot of cool movies and he said save some money with that hotel block. So
Yeah, for sure, for sure. So I don't know that I have anything else. Josh, did you think of anything else?
no,
No. This is going to be the shortest intro ever.
yeah, that's okay.
So let's not keep you guys in anticipation. We got a great guest with us, Patrick Rea. Let's jump over and we will talk with him. All right, we are here. We've got an incredible guest with us today. We have filmmaker Patrick Rea. Patrick, thank you so much for jumping in and doing this with us.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So just kind of jumping right in here. One of the things that we like to talk to our filmmakers about most is where you got your start. How did you get into filmmaking?
Well, I mean, that's kind of a long answer. I grew up in Schuyler, Nebraska. It was the 80s. And when I was a kid, I kind of daydreamed about making movies, and I would act out different things in my backyard. So my neighbors thought I was probably a crazy little kid, but, it wasn't really until high school that I caught the bug, because my high school had like a channel that broadcast to everybody who had cable. And, it was primarily supposed to be used for high school football and basketball and volleyball and all that stuff. So, but I didn't use it for that. I ended up making some weird videos and all that stuff. Nothing it was all obviously appropriate for cable. But so what I would do is I would air them, and anyone who had cable in town could see them. And so then I was like, that was kind of the bug for me. And then I went to community college in Columbus, Nebraska. Okay. And worked in kind of their tech department there, working with video. And then I transferred to the University of Kansas and started work. And we were shooting on film at that point in film school. And mini DV was just now starting to get kind of like, a lot of people were starting to utilize it just because it was affordable. You could just go to Walmart and buy mini DV tapes and make stuff. I ended up staying in Lawrence, Kansas, and just starting to just dig in and make films, and never really stopped. I mean, that's kind of how it all went down. I ended up eventually moving to Kansas City with my wife, and I just started making, and the thing is that over time the films got better and better, and I actually started getting some budgets to work with, and
sure.
And that's kind of how it goes. I mean, obviously, if you look at the primitive start and to now, there's been a big leap, and so that's the goal, is to get better each time. So,
absolutely. Okay, so you've been busy.
Yeah, it's been I think about it. So I graduated in high school in '98, and so I think I started right in '96, '97, and now here we are in 2025. I'm still here, still doing
Fair
it.
enough. So yeah. You've seen quite the technological jump then, like you were talking shooting on film and
right.
TV and
exactly. And that was the thing, is the high school we were filming on super VHS tapes, and
oh, wow.
I was editing between two VCRs, and I had like a Videonics switcher and title maker thing, and then I got to University of Kansas, and I was shooting on 16 millimeter and cutting and pasting with the old fashioned way, and then all of a sudden I started working in Premiere, which is what a lot of filmmakers use now for editing. So I have seen a lot of change. I mean, I've shot on 35 millimeter, I've shot 16 millimeter, and now primarily using the red camera as a way to make my film. So it really has. I remember when we thought 720 was like, we were like, oh my God, we got 720 HD. We're so cool. And then it went up to 1080 and, and now it's, 8K. And I
pushing 8K. Yeah.
I can zoom in on somebody's nose hair at this point. It's like, that's, so it's been a pretty cool, I feel like I've gotten the whole gamut of the change and stuff. And I feel like luckily I came in at the good time where digital was starting to take off, and I decided not to rush off to Los Angeles because I felt like I could make movies where I was at. And I feel like that definitely was a good decision.
Do you miss that at all though, Patrick? Do you miss being able to like the shooting on film aspect of filmmaking? Like, is that something that you like? Would you, if you had the opportunity to go back and shoot on film, would you just go back and just take a crack at it again?
I would if I had the opportunity and the money, yes, I think I would. But because I don't have any real drive to at this point to go back to film. I'm perfectly happy shooting on digital and the red cameras are fantastic, and I just think that it's great to be able to play back what you just shot and look at it to make sure
Right.
everything's okay, as opposed to when you're shooting on film and you got to go send it to the lab, and it's one of my professors explained it like it's like shooting an arrow into a field, and then you're like, all right, well, I'm going to come back and see where it landed later, and that's and film. I remember specifically one of my film classes where like all of the students got our film back weeks later, and it was like drum roll, everybody was playing their films and they're like, was it in focus? I mean, does it look good? And there was a lot of clapping and there was a lot of tears depending on how your film turned out. So I mean, that's the thing. I feel like we've grown now and advanced, and I feel like, but I would, if somebody offered me and said, hey, I'm going to pay for this and you can shoot on 35 millimeter, I would definitely take it.
That's cool.
So, but again, I don't think that's going to happen.
Right.
So
Actual film is a dying medium at this point, I believe.
And I think, we got directors like Christopher Nolan and Tarantino and Spielberg shoot on film, but they obviously can afford it. So
that is true. Yeah, very true.
Yeah.
So just kind of jumping a little bit ahead. Let's say you've got your next project that you want to work on. What is your creative process that you're going through in order to get that project on the ground?
Can you ask one more time? You froze. I'm just.
Oh shoot! Hang on. I can cut this piece out. Okay, my internet's so good. It said my internet was unstable, which is what you want to see.
Yeah.
So let's jump forward here, and let's say you've got a new film project that you want to kickstart and kind of get rolling.
Sure.
What is your creative process in order to get that project, get the ball rolling on that project?
It depends. Like, the last couple I've done have been, projects that came to me and they had some funding behind them. But as far as mine is concerned, like I'm looking at doing a project in the near future, a couple of different projects I'm looking at, and it's going to be one of those things where, I may approach some previous investors who've gotten their money back on other projects, or I may create a lookbook, just to show what the look is of the film. A lookbook is kind of, I would say it's like you can take pictures from other movies and say, look, this is the look I'm going for.
Oh, okay.
And or you can create an animatic. There's all these different things, storyboards to show a potential investor. Always have a really good financial plan, before you approach an investor. It just depends. I mean, I feel like it's all, there's different ways of going about it. And in the case of one of my last projects, we had a film that ended up making some of its money back, and then the investors decided to reinvest their money into the next film and stuff. And that's kind of what you want, is to have that happen. But as far, I have a project that I'm going to probably be pushing forward with of my own, and I will most likely be creating a lookbook and other things to approach some investors and go forward from there and try to entice them. And it's a sequel to a film I made a long time ago, so I'm hoping that helps. I mean, I can, say, point to it on Tubi and say it's right here, there's so many ways of going about it that we could talk forever, but always have a good, business plan and, have everything kind of figured out. There's tax credits now, depending on what state that you're in, that you can bring into the conversation. I know that Missouri now has a really good, tax incentives for films, and I think that's definitely helpful.
That's awesome,
because investors want to see that kind of stuff.
It's cool to hear you talk about the sequel situation, Patrick, because I think that movie is on our list of films we're going to talk about here coming up, and I think it's the first. Again, this is completely me guessing, so I could look dumb here down the line when I guess, but I think it's the first film we actually saw you screen at a film festival that we went to. So we'll see if that's on the list.
Your guess is probably right, but
sorry, Greg, just interrupting.
Nope, you're good. All good. From what we have seen that you've at least submitted to Flatwater, you kind of hover in that horror genre. Is that correct?
Correct. Correct.
Okay.
I you know, and that's partially because I you know, growing up, it was one of those things where like I wasn't supposed to be watching horror movies,
For sure.
and so I snuck around watching them because they were like, if my parents had said, yeah, go ahead and watch Freddy anytime you want, I might be making romantic comedies instead. But they were like, no. I remember hearing an ad for Nightmare on Elm Street 3 on the radio saying it was going to be on like Fox 42 or whatever the heck it was in the early 90s, or maybe,
Uh-huh.
yeah, it had to have been the early 90s. And I thought to myself, I'm going to go home and flip the TV on and watch that. But it was one of those things where my mom knew what I was up to, so she kept coming up the stairs and I kept switching it to Nickelodeon. And because of that, I got into horror. You know, it's just one of those things.
Thank God for the quick view button.
Yeah.
When you are creating your own horror movies, do you have any certain themes or messages that you try to convey with those movies?
The last couple I've done have really been trying to promote, you know, strong female characters and themes that deal with, you know, either marriage or just, you know, things that, you know, I know that I made a movie called Enclosure, which ended up getting retitled as Arbor Demon, which we could talk about that. Yeah. That's a whole other conversation. But that movie was really, at the time, you know, we were talking about, I just had my first kid. So, but I think when I was writing the script, my wife was pregnant, and it was just one of those things where there was this fear of fatherhood, motherhood, and all that kind of seeped into that movie. And so there are different. It just depends. I mean, the last couple of films I've made have really dealt with female empowerment, and you know, that's kind of something that I have, you know, 2 girls and all that stuff. So.
Mm-hmm. We lost Josh, so we'll just keep rolling here.
Okay.
Yeah, just kind of looking at your list here. You know, we had got to see Chloe's Happy Hour.
Yes.
With Flatwater Film Festival, and that personally is one of my favorites that you've created. So thank you for submitting that.
Thank you. Yeah, I have some news about that short film, by the way.
Yes,
it's going to be Chloe's Happy Hour is going to be on Screenbox later this summer as part of their Bloody Bites series. So, and that was one where the actress, I had just worked with her on a feature, and she reached out to me and she's like, I want to do a short film and just write it for me, write me a character. And so she does a lot of social media posting. And so I was like, I'm going to write a character where you're basically doing that, but then we're going to make it a horror movie, you know, and the kind of unexpected way, you know. And for so sure. We shot that whole thing in her actual kitchen. So, you know, but it was a lot of fun.
That's really cool.
Yeah, I might pop out again too, because my internet is being, you know, the internet. So
it's being
no worries.
Did you have any questions at all? We were talking Chloe's Happy Hour for kind of that strong female characters.
No, because I missed that whole thing. I don't have a follow up, so I apologize. Otherwise, I'd just jump in.
No, all good. So you got your project rolling. You've got your investors. You're on set. What does your on set process kind of look like? And what do you do for like challenges that you need to overcome when you're creating these films?
Well, you know, we do a lot of heavy prep work ahead of time so that the actual shooting process is pretty smooth, and generally it is. I mean, there's always something that you don't see coming, that, you know, whether it be weather or an actor who's sick, or something that's just not quite working with makeup or such. But generally speaking, we just do so much planning on the front end. I always say the worse the pre-production, the better the actual shoot can go. So, you know, we get all of our paperwork ready to go and all that stuff, so that when we're actually filming, everybody can just kind of enjoy themselves, and there's a lot more room for creativity, and people, if they have new ideas, they can bring them to the table. And there's not a lot of, I mean, you're always going to have something, though, I swear. Whether there's things you can't see coming, so you try to tackle ahead of time all the things you can control. And so, I mean, on set, the sets are pretty darn fun. Everybody has a good time, and I don't tolerate jerks on set. I mean, I just don't like. I mean, I'm very careful on who I bring to set, and so that there's no bad apples that can ruin the entire thing for people. So
that's awesome. That's awesome.
How do you decide, Patrick, whether or not, like, so you'll make, you know, a handful of short films and then you'll go into a feature film. So how do you decide when it's
Yeah.
time to like make that leap?
Making a feature can take a year or two, or sometimes multiple years to make. I know Nailbiter was
Mhm.
like 4 years of my life, and so I wanted to make some short films because they're a little faster.
Right.
I mean, they're just faster to make. You can get
Yeah.
them done in 2 days. And I sometimes think that short films, there's a story there that doesn't need to be any longer than 10 minutes. And it's like, I think that, I just like to make movies, and it doesn't matter if it's a feature or a short.
Mhm.
Lately though, I have been doing less. Maybe I haven't been doing less shorts, and I feel like I have been, but yeah, I've been focusing mostly on features. But in between, it's almost like you
Mhm.
need a palate cleanser. You're like, I've been working so hard on this feature, and I just need something short to just kind of. And you can take chances with
Right.
those. You can do different, use different equipment, and so that because the stakes are lower.
Right.
Let's just be honest; they just are a lot lower on a short film. Yeah, I mean, for me, it's just all about just telling the story, and some stories I think shouldn't be longer than
Mhm.
10,
Do
15
you
minutes.
use some of your
Mhm.
short films to try something that you might use on a feature film down the line? Like, I really want to try this thing. I'm not sure it's going to work, so I want to do a short film.
Well,
If it works, I'll put it into the feature kind of thing.
Sure. I mean, it could be something as simple as all right, I have a container film, a movie that's in primarily one spot. Nailbiter is another good example. I made a short film called Do Not Disturb right before I made Nailbiter, and I was like, I need to test this red camera and see what it can do.
Sure.
So we shot with the red camera, and I said, well, it needs to be something kind of enclosed, and so we shot that short film in like this hotel room, and so I was doing a dry run on something smaller, and to see how, and I was working with some of the crew that I was going to be working on with Nailbiter, and we just wanted to see what the flow was going to be like with that particular camera and stuff like that. So yeah, totally. I mean, I maybe not quite as much anymore, but I did used to do that a lot. So.
Well, since you brought it up, Nailbiter was the first film that we saw at the Prairie Lights Film Festival when we were going to that. That was in Grand Island.
That was in Grand Island, wasn't it? That was a while ago.
That was the first film. I think our first experience with you as a filmmaker was Nailbiter, and I feel like you've been chatting about making a sequel to that. You think even back at Prairie Lights, we had a conversation about you making a sequel to Nailbiter.
It keeps me up at night, guys. I mean, here's the thing. Like, I got involved with a lot of that's the sequel to that movie has been very difficult to make, only because we went through a distributor where we don't know how we did financially, and it's been very like Lionsgate is not going to just tell you what you've made on this movie. They've been very and good luck getting that information from them. So it has taken me a while, and there's been 2 different scripts we've written, and now I'm about ready to start a third. And it just it's a little bit different approach that I'm going to be taking with it than I anticipated, but it's actually, I think, still going to work quite well. I mean, there's certain things I mean, those actors it's been what? I mean, that movie came out in 2013, but we shot it in 2009. So like, it's been 16 years, and some of those actors are just flat. You just can't bring them back. So there's going to be some things that I'm going to do that it'll connect to the first movie, but it may be mostly its own self-contained story in some ways. So we'll see how it all goes. But I've started kind of tinkering with the idea. But yeah, it's just tough when you're trying to make a sequel to something where it was an indie film, and you want to go into an investor and say, this is what the movie did financially, and you have no way of doing that. It becomes very challenging. So, and then I just got, pulled into different projects that I thought were interesting, and stuck with those. And so it just, time has passed me by a little bit. But I feel like there's plenty of, I think it's a cool, the Nailbiter concept is still cool. And I think that the idea that there's these creatures are like werewolves, but they're affected by the storms and all that stuff. I feel like there's a lot that I can still mess with that could be interesting.
So. Follow up, Greg. We need the question. Fire off. What's next on your list? Because
this is more just out of my curiosity. you obviously you're a filmmaker, we know that. Is this like your actual profession, or do you do this as like the serious on-side stuff to like creating videos, like corporate type videos or something like that?
I mean, it's for me, it's a balance of I have worked on. Let's see here, I'm full time, a full time filmmaker. Yes, the
Okay.
answer is yes. But I'm working on like I first AD'd a feature in October that I was also the editor on, and
Okay.
then I just produced a feature that we shot in March, but they hired me in January and all that stuff. And then I've been wrapping up the feature that I shot previously, which I was being paid to work on.
Sure.
So I'm just jumping from project to project, but occasionally there's a commercial that comes my way that I take on
Okay.
as well. So I like to say that I'm a director, writer, producer, editor, all that, together. And sometimes I'm just doing one of those things. And sometimes I'm doing all of those things depending, but it keeps me busy. And lately it's been good. So
Okay.
knock on wood.
Kansas City's got a super
Yeah.
like rad group of filmmakers out there. I know a couple people out there. And do you guys collaborate at all? Do you find yourself working with the same team on every film, or that community out there is like super great? So
yeah, it's great, and yeah, there's definitely a family of people that I work with, and that family grows. We add new crew members, and it expands, but yeah, a lot of people are sticking around after graduating from KU and UMKC and all that, and trying to build careers out here. And so I've been recruiting a lot of new people and seeing how they work with the people that I've worked with for the last 15 years, and trying to create like a new blend of the blend of the old and the blend of the new, and trying to keep things going out here. And so yeah, I mean, I feel like there's just a lot of support, out here, which is good. And I hope it stays that way.
That's fantastic. Just again, kind of more out of curiosity, what advice would you wished you would have had as a brand new filmmaker coming out of even high school or out of KU?
There's a couple of things. I one thing that we didn't learn in college, and I really wish people would learn, is the more the business side of things. I feel like there's a lot of business side of things that you just have to, if you don't learn it, obviously you're not going to learn it in school. You're going to learn it the hard way or through trial and error. So, and that deals with distribution. I mean, I do distribution seminars here in Kansas City just because I've been through it so many times, and I've seen, things not work out, and things do work out occasionally, but it is a very difficult side of the business that people need to understand. And there's just a lot of things that the distribution companies require you to have to get your movie out there that some people aren't even thinking about at the time, and also I like to tell people that so much of directing is maintaining interpersonal relationships among your crew and actors, and sometimes you have to, break up fights, and you have to mend things, and you have to be kind of I always say, kind of like a guidance counselor, or a therapist. And it's true. It's all relationships and stuff like that. And a lot of that, you in film school, you learn, history and theory, and you learn production, but you don't learn that you also have to be, I mean, so much of it is, relationships, and keeping some of those relationships going over the years, and working with some of the same people, and not being a jerk. I think a lot of people don't realize that, you can't, in a small film community, be that way. And once that, it gets out that you're a jerk or difficult to work with, or you're not providing meals for people, and you're working them 17 hours a day on a film, it can destroy things pretty quickly. I mean, unless you make something that just blows up and everybody just wants to be a part of your next movie, it can make it very difficult for you to make a follow-up feature if you've treated people crappy on your productions.
Let's talk about film festivals for a second, Patrick, because you have gone. I remember we had a conversation about all the different film festivals that you have traveled to, and how much of that has helped you in the business of filmmaking, where meeting different people at these film festivals who might know this person, to get your films funded or distributed or anything like that. How important is that to go to these different film festivals?
I think it's really important, and if you can afford it, you should go. I tell people that if you can afford it, you can go. Obviously, that's not humanly possible most of the time. So, like, I try to pick a few that I'm gonna make it to. Like, I love coming to your guys' festival because I just have to drive to it, And same thing with the Omaha Film Festival. But yeah, like I try to get to a couple big ones a year if my films are playing and I can afford it, and I think it's so important because you make relationships with people and you meet them, and there's always these there's cocktail parties and there's all these things that you can attend and have small talk and get to know people, and then you can see other people's movies and see what they're putting together, and a lot of them are in the same boat that we are, and they're making their films and they're outside of Hollywood, outside of the system, and so there's kind of like that connection that you have because everybody's going through the same thing you're going through, and a lot of the times they're like, have you heard of this distributor? I'm thinking about going with this distributor. And then, you'll be like, well, I've heard a horrible story about that distributor. You shouldn't do that. And so, that's kind of the thing, and it's, again, it also, I always tell people you're making a movie to show to people. Like that's the whole reason you're doing it. So if you don't go show it to people, there really is that's the reason you're making a movie. So you really should see it with an audience. I have a hard time watching my films with audiences, but I at least go to the film festivals and gauge reactions and stuff like that. But I admit I'm terrible about sitting through my entire, because I start noticing things that I want to go back and change, and it just, but it's getting people's reactions for me is very important.
Do you, so you've had films on both Hulu. Arbor Demon played on Hulu, right? And Enclosure played, and then Tubi
for a year, yes,
Tubi,
a year, 2 years maybe.
So on Peacock, So on the business side of, do those all go through distributors, or did you go? Okay.
Yeah, and yes, the distributor usually licenses the movies, and the way it's supposed to work is that you have a split with your distributor. Your distributor is supposed to take a piece of the pie, and you take the rest of the pie, and that's the way it's supposed to be. So, you're supposed to get, again, I say supposed to because it doesn't always work that way, but you're supposed to get quarterly reports, and you're supposed to, get a check if you've made money based off of, ad revenue through Peacock or Tubi or whatever. And so, and these movies, the thing is, I'm going to be frank with you, the distributor doesn't always tell you when these movies pop up on these streaming platforms. So I always tell filmmakers, keep track of where your movie's at. Go to Roku or Google and figure out, oh, wow, my movie, for a while, Arbor Demon was on Paramount Plus. They never told me. Wow. I just happened upon it, And so there's things that, and that's just the reality of it. I Am Lisa seems to pop up on a different platform every other month. So I try to keep up with all that stuff. And I had no idea that Nailbiter was on Tubi until the week it popped up. And I just happened to be going through the movies on Tubi. And then I'm like, wait a minute, and there it was. And so those are the things it's the reality is they're not going to just call you up and tell you. You just have to figure it out.
So let's just dive into some of the films that you've made. We'll talk about some of the ones that have played Flatwater, but we might deviate a little bit. Craig's got a better list than me because he wrote down the years they played Flatwater. And we actually have quite a few films that I didn't realize. I had to go back and look. Quite a few films that have played Flatwater, which thank you, by the way. Always great, and always
very much thank you.
I continue to submit. So
we get a film that pops up in our list from Patrick Rea, and we're like, we got another Patrick film. So celebration. The first year we did Flatwater, we had Flatwater. We played Fused and Spiritual Practice.
And I made those roughly around the same time.
And then
both have Sarah McGuire, an actress that I work with frequently.
It's Hell Getting Old. We screened that in 22. Greg, you got the years, man. So I'm
22. Yeah,
to
I'll
mess these
I'll
up.
correct
But
you if you're wrong.
the next one is one I really want to talk about.
You're good.
So the next one was a feature film called They Wait in the Dark. We played. So let's talk about where that came from. And
Okay.
uh,
Sure. So I was approached by the executive producer, Megan Flynn. It was during COVID, and she was like, I want to make a feature. I'm turning 40, and I want to make a feature. And I was like, okay. And so she kind of gave me some parameters on what she was able to do in terms of financing and all that stuff. And so I was like, well, this is a good opportunity to make a haunted house movie with primarily one location. But I didn't want to make the same old. I mean, the problem I have with a lot of haunted house movies is, the second something really crazy happens, I would leave.
Mm-hmm.
And it just seems like most people in horror movies are like, I'm going to stick around. I'm going to stay in this house that's haunted and not leave. Right. So I had to come up with, the story has this mother and her adopted son who are inside this house that, she's on the run from her ex-girlfriend. And so the ex-girlfriend is tracking her down. So she feels like she's caught between the supernatural stuff that's happening in the house and then the fact that there's somebody coming after her. And so she feels like she has nowhere to go. So I felt like that was a good enough, way of explaining why she doesn't just pack up and leave. And she doesn't have a car. And she's in the middle of nowhere. And so and the timing, the way the movie is set up, it's like over a short enough period of time where, the walls are closing in on her in both ways and she doesn't really have time to run. And, but we shot most of that movie outside of Topeka, Kansas. There was a farmhouse that we were able to utilize. Its release has been a very interesting experience as we went through a company called 1091 Pictures. And this is, again, something that I tell people, learn about distribution. 1091 Pictures was owned by a company called Chicken Soup for the Soul, which declared bankruptcy last year. They also own the Red Box.
Okay. So
right now we're dealing with that. We're dealing with we have the rights back to the movie, but it's not as simple as that. So it's currently still on Amazon. It's still on some free services right now, but we've been trying to. We have a new distributor interested in the movie. It's just one of those things where because of the bankruptcy, we've got to get all that stuff kind of figured out. But I'm very proud of that movie. I mean, we got a nice review from the New York Times and but because it's an LGBTQ horror movie, there was a lot of anti-LGBTQ rhetoric that went around that movie that I had to kind of just deal with. And I mean, it's like they drove down our IMDb score to the point where I was like, that's the thing about IMDb ratings. It's like anybody can vote and post negative remarks and such, but all in all, I'm very pleased with the movie, and I stand by all the decisions that were made. I want to ask you about this really quick. Somebody came to you and said, I want to make a feature film. Will you help me make a feature film? Is that somebody that is already in your circle, that's worked on your films previously, that kind of knows how you work? How does that come about? Like, can somebody just come up and say, hey, I know Patrick Rea, and I almost messed it up. I fixed it. And
don't do that, Josh.
I'm trying not to mess it up. And just say, hey, I know I have this story idea. I want to try this thing. Can people pitch films to you, Patrick, and just kind of get a gauge on?
I mean, yeah, and I've had that happen to me in the sense of with They Wait in the Dark. I've known Megan for over a decade. She was in some of my short films, and she's worked with me on so many things. So it was an easy thing to say yes to. I guess my thing is it's when people come up to me and say, I have this idea to pitch to you. I'd like you to make it, but I'd also like you to go raise the money. And that's a thing where I have to decline, only because it unless it's something I'm just like, I have to put all my energy into raising the money. But like that part of it is so challenging that it's like, I have to kind of decide what projects I'm going to take on in that regard. If I'm going to go out and try to raise capital, it has to be something that I'm, but if somebody comes up to me and says, I have a short film or I have a feature film and I've got this X amount of dollars, and if I like the script, then yes, absolutely. I would do it.
Sorry, I'm gonna keep going down the films. We talked about Chloe's Happy Hour a little bit and where that kind of came from. I missed it,
Yep.
Because my internet sucks. But we played that. Stalker Grandma, which we really enjoyed, was a lot of fun.
Yeah, that was.
And that was one that where the writer came to me and pitched it to me, and she had some funding for it, and we just went out and made it happen. You know,
Okay.
that's an example of that. So, and we just had a really good time making it. I need to get that movie on some type of platform at this point. I think the festival run for it has kind of come to an end, so we're going to try to figure out some new places for it. But yeah, I mean, and that's the thing with short films is once the festival side of things runs out, I mean, right now there's, at least for horror anyway, more ways of actually getting your movie out there after the festival run is over. I mean, there's more options now, and that didn't used to be the case. You know, some people would make their short film, show it to, you know, at a handful of festivals, and then, you know, put it in their sock drawer. So it's like you just have to, you know, or put it up on YouTube, you know. So I'm always kind of trying to figure out where some of these films can live on outside of, you know, a hard drive.
Do you again, I'm all over the place. The aspects of filmmaking.
No, you're fine. You're fine.
Which part do you enjoy the most? Are you like, because some people really love directing, some people really like the writing aspect of it because it's just by yourself and people will leave you alone.
Yeah. It's like I like every aspect that I'm not doing at that time. It's like if I'm writing, I'm like, man, I love directing, and if I'm directing, I'm like, man, I love editing. I mean, that's a tough question because you know, I derive joy out of you know, each aspect of it, but with each aspect there's negatives. I think that, you know, it's just one of those things where, like, when I'm directing, I love it, but then with that comes, if the movie doesn't work, you get blamed. If there's a lot more, you know, you have to, you know, you're making all the creative decisions. People are asking you 100 questions a day, you know, that kind of thing. But then on editing, it's like you're putting it together and you're like, oh my God, I am an idiot. You know what? How could I have missed this particular shot? Yeah. But with editing, it's like by the time you start reworking, all of a sudden you start seeing, you go through all these different steps. And I think I've seen memes where they're like, you know, when you're editing your movie, you're like, oh, this is horrible. And then you're like, oh, this is decent. Oh, this is great. No, it's horrible again. You know, you go through all those phases. And then, you know, producing I enjoy, but there's a lot more. It's not the creative aspect necessarily. It's all nuts and bolts of you're setting up an infrastructure, hiring crew, making sure there's insurance and all that stuff. And sometimes that's good. You need a creative break and use a different muscle, you know. And then writing, I would say, you know, I'm going to be doing some of that this week, and it's like I feel like it's long overdue because it seems like the thing I do the least out of those four. So, you know. Mainly because I'm getting paid more to do those other things, and I don't have as much time to just write and sit and write something. But I'm going to be doing that this week. And while I'm writing, I usually am in a really good place, you know, quiet or listening to really bad 80s metal. You know, I don't know. Right. So I mean,
whatever inspires you.
And it's a tough question to answer, and I'm not sure I gave you a clear one. But
working with like co-writers and actors. How important is collaboration to you in the pre and, you know, post and, you know, just production in general?
This is a very good question. I think that obviously with writing, if you're writing with a co-writer, it's a collaboration all the way. Unless you're the only writer, you're definitely collaborating with that writer. It's your guys' script. When it comes to on set, I'm very collaborative sometimes to a fault. But there is a point where you're the one making the final decision, and ultimately you have to be the one who makes the call. And, you know, that's the way it is. And when it gets to post, I will collaborate to a point as well. You know, I will decide, you know, who gets to see the edit and give me notes. But there is a point where I'm like, okay, that's enough. Everything else from here is my call. I get final cut. And ultimately, it's the movie that I wanted to make. You know what I'm saying? Like, you have to. There has to be a point where you say that. Otherwise, it's like you've taken too many cooks and put them in the kitchen with you. So I do collaborate with the edit up to a point. But then there is a point where I'm like, all right, this is it. I'm making the rest of these decisions with most likely the executive producer who, and whatever. But I think that there's definitely a cutoff for me, but most of the time up to that point, I'm very collaborative.
Actors on set, when you hand them a script, are you pretty loose? Like, are you like dead on? This is how the words have to be said. These are the words I've written. This is the way it's got to be. Or do you let them kind of try and play with some stuff? That's awesome. Okay.
I let them play. Yeah, I do. I'm very flexible with that because it's like, you don't know. There's always a better way of saying something. I'm just not married to it. I know that I'm not David Mamet. It's like, I'm just not, I'm very realistic in what we're doing and what we're trying to achieve. And it's, so, I mean, there are obviously some lines that we try to make exact. Especially if it's like a punchline or something like that to something. But yeah, if there's a better way of saying it, then by all means, I'm all ears. I don't like it to sound clunky, and sometimes you can't avoid it, and you try your best. But majority of the time, I'm very flexible.
The last film we played at Flatwater was probably one of my favorite films that you submitted to Flatwater because it was so different. Like you live in this genre of like horror filmmaking, but this didn't it rode this weird kind of line, but it didn't feel like horror. And that was, but it's The Last of the Butterflies. Was The Last Butterfly? Yeah, was the last
Butterflies,
film we played at Flatwater. Like I said, and
right
again, it didn't feel like it lived in that kind of place that you usually live in.
It's more real life horror than anything. It has a lot of maybe sense of impending doom that's going on in it. I that script appealed to me, and that was a situation where the writer, producer, and lead actress Whitney approached me about directing, and I said yes, and we went out and froze our butts off for 6 days filming that in the middle of nowhere of Kansas, and we had a couple scenes that we shot in Kansas City, but most of it was kind of out in the middle of nowhere, and the film has done very well. It's gotten into a lot of festivals, and I think that one is our next one. We're going to try to get it on Tubi somehow so that people can see it, because it's a half hour, and I think that it can we're going to try to get it on some streaming platforms, and I know she wants to make it into a series. But yeah, believe it or not, we had a lot of fun making that. The film itself isn't necessarily, it's not a comedy, but
it's really
we did have a lot of fun.
And it played really well at Flatwater. And there's a lot of conversations around that film because it played really well. We just got Icebox submitted for Flatwater this year. It played off last month. And Panic Fest
this month.
Nice. Okay.
So where did again, it's a film that lives in the horror genre kind of, but doesn't really fit in that pocket either. Yeah,
it's suspense. It's suspense more than anything. Yeah, I mean that one was I was approached by the Missouri Film Office was involved with that particular production. And, I got sent the script, and I was like, I'm doing it. This is great. I just love it. And the challenging thing about that is it's set in 1989, so we had to find cars that were in that time period, and I couldn't believe how difficult that was. I mean, we found a guy who basically has a bunch of old cars, but it was challenging. I mean, I think it wasn't until the day of filming that I knew that we were going to have a car to show up that would be, not a modern vehicle. And so that was really hard. And another thing that was challenging about that movie was I'm like, let's film in December because it's going to be cold. Well, it turns out we filmed in December and it was 60 degrees outside. So I'm like, all right, well, we're going to make it seem like it's cold because it wasn't actually cold when we filmed it. So, that one I'm proud of, and I'm hoping we can get it into some more festivals. It premiered at Tallgrass, and then it's played Omaha, Panic Fest, Kansas City Film Fest, and we're waiting to hear on some other ones. There's always that delay. You submit to a festival, and you're like, I got to wait 3 months to find out.
There's one more film I want to talk to you about really quick, and then I have a follow-up question, and then we'll move on. But also just premiered, I think, at Panic Fest was Super Happy Fun Clown, which I'm very curious. Like, I want to see that movie. And because Panic Fest is also like a Kansas City film festival, do you try to premiere your films in that area first before you send them out, or?
I mean, it's great when it works out that way because everybody's there. And Panic Fest has just happened to become one of the bigger horror festivals in the country, and luckily it's like 12 minutes from my house, so it's very ideal. So it worked out great, and we had a sold out screening. The movie is definitely a horror comedy, so it's meant to be. It's got serious stuff in it, but at the same time, it's supposed to be funny. I mean, it's definitely got a dark comedy horror vibe, and so I always tell people, like, if you're laughing, that was the intention. And so we wanted to make. I got approached with the script, and I wanted to make kind of this interesting character. The character of Jeno, the clown, and I think we did a really good job. It's going to be playing at another big festival in the summer, and I can't say what it is.
Okay.
They told me no. Yeah. They said don't tell anyone. But so it's just one of those things where we'll see where it goes. I feel like it's got the timing is good because Terrifier has gotten really popular. Though this is again a lot different. You'll when you watch it, it does not feel like that. It's got a lot more psychological elements to it, and deals with 15 minutes of fame, and growing up and not living up to your parents' expectation and that kind of thing. It deals with, but you got a great reaction, and the reviews have been good. So fingers crossed that we can keep.
I guess
going
my last question, talking about, because I can talk about your films, go through films all day long and stories and everything, but. Has there been a short film that you've made, whether it's on this list or not on this list, that you put out there and you were like, I'd like to take that short film because I think I can make a feature out of it?
Yeah, for sure. There's one called Time's Up Eve that I made like in 2010. It's black and white. It's kind of got this 1940s noir look to it, but it's also got a sci-fi horror element to it. And it's not even that film particular I would like to expand. It's like that style I would like to do a feature in. So that one in particular, I would like to do something with, or at least delve back into that. It's like, how much time do I have left on this earth? Can I make all these things? You know what I'm saying? So it's frustrating because you have all these ideas and you're trying to but then everything takes so much time, and so you have to kind of pick and choose which projects you're going to go through with and make sure that they're something you're really excited about. But that is definitely something I'd like to make, something black and white noir, but then put elements of sci-fi in there. So
great. We got any more on our list?
That's awesome. Yeah. Last question that we usually ask our guests. If you can talk about your experience with the Flatwater Film Festival, and not necessarily just a pat on the back for us, but we truly want to know how it's worked out for you being able to play your films with us. And
first off, it's been great getting to see the inside of that theater, because I'm talking like my entire childhood driving through Seward to Lincoln or something like that. I'd be like, hey, look at that movie theater. I should see a movie there sometime. And it's like, it wasn't until my 30s or and early 40s that I actually stepped foot in the theater, and it's a great theater. I love the festival, and I think you guys are doing an amazing job. And it sometimes falls on a weekend that I can't get there. I think my sister represented me last year, and then my parents the year before, because they're closer than I am. Obviously, Skylar is 40 minutes away, and my sister lives in Lincoln, so I try to get to it as much as I can. And I think you guys are doing a great job with having the director discussions and all that stuff, and the theater is cool, and it seems like you guys are getting really good crowds, and so I just hope you guys keep going with it. So
sure.
That's awesome. Well, we appreciate you so much for taking your time and giving us just unbelievable information. This has just been absolutely outstanding.
Please, can I make one last plug?
Yeah, please.
I have I made a found footage movie. All right, guys. I had to do it. It's coming out on Tubi on Friday, April 18th. It's called The Night is Young.
The Night is
and
Young.
it's like a vampire dating. I'm giving away too much. The dating vampire found footage movie.
Okay.
We made it on like less than shoestring budget. I mean, it was like dental floss budget.
Okay.
And we just decided to go out and do it. I mean, everybody kind of just said, let's go make this movie. And we just went out there and did it. It ended up premiering at Popcorn Frights in Florida. And then Terror Films is putting it out. And it's on Amazon right now to rent. But then it's going to be free on Friday and on a bunch of like digital platforms and stuff like that. So it's 76 minutes. So it just flies by. And we just tried to do something fun and different with the found footage genre because I can't get enough of those movies. And
Sure.
so I just was like, yeah, let's go do one and see how it turns out. So
That's fantastic. The Night is Young. All right. We'll keep an eye open for that. Outside of that, where can people find you? Where can they find your stuff outside of all the platforms and anything like that?
Well, I mean, obviously they can find me on Facebook and Instagram, usually under Patrick Rea. And I'm on Blue Sky now. As a social media platform. But I mean, if you go to Roku and you type in the title of one of my films, it pops up on a bunch of different platforms, whether it be Tubi or Peacock or Freevee, which I'm like, is Freevee still around? They said they were going to take it away, but it's still there. I don't know. Yeah, I mean, just definitely look me up on social media and I usually am posting where the movies are playing, whether it be a film festival or online. So
awesome. Well, thank you again. Appreciate your time, and we look forward to whatever you come up with next because you're an incredible talent. So thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you for supporting the Flatwater Podcast, produced in collaboration with the Flatwater Film Festival. To learn more, be sure to click the subscribe button and follow us on our social media pages by searching for the Flatwater Film Festival. You can also find us on our website, flatwaterfilmfestival.com. The 5th annual Flatwater Film Festival will be hosted at the historic Rivoli Theater in downtown Seward, Nebraska, September 26th through the 28th of 2025. The Flatwater Film Festival is a 501c3 nonprofit organization created to celebrate Nebraska filmmakers by providing a non-competitive platform to showcase their work, developing, promoting, and providing support for a stronger filmmaking community and fostering the next generation of Nebraska filmmakers.